no. There was never any doubt in my mind about that.
Right.
But I do know that some women who go through this struggle with that part of it a lot more.
Sure.
Sure.
You
Well,
didn't,
because
you
it's
didn't,
that.
you didn't really have time to, to just sit here thinking, you didn't have time to really process and grasp the, the totality of the situation, which, I mean, you did, you absolutely
No,
did the right thing, but you didn't have time yourself to really sit down and think through what had just taken place and how different your life was going to be from, from this point on.
no, and there's so many factors that come into how much was going to change and what was going to come from that. And to be honest, I didn't have an opportunity to start healing for at least a year because of all the shit that came after.
It must have just felt like a tornado.
The first year I was either completely disassociated, nobody was home, robotic, couldn't retain information for very basic things. When I had to apply for welfare, I couldn't even fill out the form. I had to ask the social worker to arrange to get the forms filled out for me. I verbally answered the question. So I was either completely disassociated or in absolute agony, pain, crying, so feeling the trauma.
I guess, Katie, should we go to when he finally did come back and you had to confront him?
She actually didn't confront him.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's for the best.
This is the craziest part of the story. So I was reading through, and I want to thank you, Leah, for sharing those documents with me, because it really helped fill in a lot of the blanks that weren't included in some of your other interviews. But after Leah found these images, her friend picks her up and she goes to the police station, and it's like, you are so brave to do that right away. And you are so brave to do that. Like, you should be so proud of yourself for taking that step and having the wherewithal to know that you had to do that. So I'm sure it was absolutely traumatic. And, I think the most telling part of the documents that you had shared with me was this: you go back to your house the next day, or you text him that you found the images, and he sends you back something sort of hostile, and then you never hear from him again.
No, that's it. I text, he got home. I stayed at my friend's house, and he got home at 2 or 3 in the morning and texted me and said, "Where's my iPad?"
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then I really didn't know what to do. And to be honest, I didn't want to speak to him. I never ever wanted anything to do with that person again, ever, on any level, and still don't. But I have 3 dogs, and I didn't know who this person was anymore, and if he was a danger to myself or the dogs. Now, in hindsight, he wasn't unsafe in that sense, but that's how I felt at the time. I was so scared for my dogs. I thought, will he harm the dogs because of me recording him? And so it was really, really hard. But I decided that instead of confronting him in person, it was safer for me to message him and risk not being there when I did that, with, to see if the dogs were all right. It felt like it was a horrible decision, but in the end, I think I texted him an hour later. I told him what I'd found, and I told him to get out of the house. And that's the last I heard of him. Where's my iPad?
Wow.
Oh, wow. He didn't respond to your text that you sent him?
No.
He must have known that he knew the jig was up.
Oh yeah, I'd say he went into a serious panic. You know, he did end up in a psych ward for quite a while. I believe maybe he was faking it, but you know, he might have, you know, had a true psychotic break because he knew that he was screwed basically. And I still, you know, at this moment, I still didn't know what they were going to find on his computers. So, but he knew.
You only saw that. Yeah, you only saw those images, those like closed images. So you didn't even know what was coming.
No, and that was really a really difficult part of it. It takes the police quite, you know, a while to examine them because they have to do it, you know, properly and, you know,
sure.
I don't think the police always get back to you straight away either, whether you're reporting this or not. So, you know.
And I know it's, you know, we say that hindsight's 20/20, but looking back now that you've had some time to sort of process things, do you look back and are there any like sort of behaviors or things that you look back and see that there may have been something to that? Like, was he acting in a specific way? Was he doing like weird things? Like, I'm asking so that people, maybe if they're, like I said earlier, are going through this similar situation, things that, you know, sort of they can, or you can look to and say, well, looking back, you know, he did this and it was odd, and maybe it will, you know, connect with some people. Did he have any behaviors that you look back and sort of connect with what he was doing, or was he just really good at, you know, sort of hiding that side of him?
There is some things, but you know, that the things that I think of could amount to any number of reasons, not just what he was doing. He was very, very private with his social media and what he did on his computers and stuff. And I respected that because that's what I'm like in a relationship. I respect someone's privacy. I trust them. So really, when he found me, he found probably the perfect person to just allow him to do whatever he wanted. So yeah, that not being open about his, you know, everything with his phone, his computers and all those things. As far as covering who he really was, he did a very, very good job. I mean, even if we watched a show that might cover this topic, we watched a Louis Theroux one documentary that talked about this, and I can remember him having quite a strong reaction to the men in that documentary in a hateful way. I can't remember exactly what he said, but you know, he spewed hate. So I guess it's some kind of projection, but if you had to raise that subject with him, he would react just like any other human being.
I know exactly the Louis Theroux documentary you're talking about. I love Louis Theroux. I think he's fantastic, and
he is.
I know several in several instances that came up where the guys that he was talking to in the documentary that were at the that halfway house, I think it was that they're at, they would say the same thing. And I think it's exactly what you said, a projection. It's sort of that need to be extra vocal almost to a certain extent so that it throws.
It really works quite well. Who would suspect someone who's got such strong opinions about it? And you've also got to throw in that these guys are often very, very, if you want to go into cluster B, personality disorders, narcissism, Probably some of them are psychopaths. I don't know. I believe my ex is probably on that narcissism. Yeah, he was on the narcissism spectrum. I just won't say personality disordered because that's not my place to say that. But very, you know, they're manipulative, and if you just imagine yourself, if you had a secret this bad, what the amount of energy and effort you would put into covering it up.
Yes.
The problem with what happens with women like myself is they become part of the grooming process. We're groomed to believe that they are the good guys. Just, you know, they just come across as normal guys. Just, you know, the typical offender of this is, you know, 30-something white working middle-class man. Like, I mean, that's obviously not the only thing. Like, there is others, of course, but, you know, that's quite a typical situation. And they don't have criminal histories, but they're just normal guys. You know,
yeah,
everyone in their world becomes part of that manipulation to cover it up because so much is at stake.
Well, and you are. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and you are used in a way as the.
Oh yeah.
You're the.
I was used,
you know, you're.
I said early on, I was his cover to present a normal life. So when I was able to sit down and, you know, I became quite obsessed with figuring out what he was up to in the early weeks. So I got into his Facebook. I got into everything, and what I discovered was just a completely different person to what I knew. So some offenders have this. I'm trying to say it in a way that's. Some offenders are coming from a different angle. So his offending seems to be more on. He seems to be interested in anything that's wrong or taboo or weird or not so much a preference for the illegal stuff. So
yeah.
I had no idea. We had a normal vanilla relationship. He never, I think the first or second date we went on, it would have been second or third actually. He said to me, "Oh, would you be into having threesomes?" And I said, "Not my thing." And that was the weirdest it got. And that's not even weird. So he had this whole double life with his sexuality. And from what I saw online, he participated in that before I met him. While I was with him, he was up to all sorts of stuff. And when we get into the really yuck pathology of it all is some of these people he was talking to online, he would talk about me doing the things that he was actually doing or making up stories that involved me and him in some kind of, he said we had a 15-year-old girl staying with us. We were looking after her, and he accidentally walked in on her while she was in the bathroom. He told this to a friend at work. And that's just a complete load of crap. We didn't have anyone staying with us. It was like this weird delusional fantasy world. So in that sense, it's a bit different to how most people would see these offenders who are coming, their interest is just in that illegal, that child abuse material. He had a vast array of interests.
I may have missed this when I went to tend to my dog, but when the night that you found what you found, did he how did you know to go look there? Because I may have missed that part, but like did he generally leave like his iPad or his computer open and available for you to